is really in a position to determine what a title court would determine. And in any event, this motion and this town meeting's actions would take precedence over a prior town meeting's. And then lastly, as the chairman of the Board of Selectmen said, past town meetings rightly asked for more information. That's exactly what has come back to us tonight, not to make a final decision, but rather to start the more serious negotiations and come back one final time in the spring to voters for a final decision. Just let us keep this process moving forward. Thank you.
Gentleman to my left.
Dave Walton, District 3. Through you, Mr. Moderator, before I have a statement, I'd like to ask Mr. Heaton, through you, if I may, if be it 2, 3, 4, or 5 bidders or people that have shown interest, have every one of these bids in their entirety been for 1 and max 2-bedroom units, and also with the idea that it would be ages 55 and over for all residents?
To answer the question?
Yes, sir. All of the proposals are for over age 55. Some of them have a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Some of them are predominantly 1-bedroom units.
Okay. Thank you. Now, if everybody here wants the housing, that's your choice, but I want it done fairly. And one thing that really bothers me, it's bothered me for a long time, and you have to understand, residents of Wareham, you have to understand, you will never, until they change things in Boston, up in the State House, the town of Wareham will never have a sufficient 40B housing to run the roost. They will not. I'd like to read something to you. This is the way it's done now, and not too many people know that, and it's not brought to your attention. So if you want this unit, do not look at it as a need for 40B. If you want it, that's your choice, but not for 40B. The first assumption of 40B is that once a town reaches the threshold of 10%, 40B developers can no longer force projects. Wrong. The reality is that as soon as a town begins reaching the 10% threshold, the Department of Housing and Community Development changed the rules so that 40B could still be forced on a town if there is a regional need. Rest assured, Wareham has a regional need. We're one of the poorest per capita towns in the state, so we have a regional need. The second misconception is that 40B has created tens of thousands of affordable units. Those units have an affordable life of just 20 years, then they become market rate. By 2010, 40B will have created just 1,000 affordable units in over 40 years, but will have created more than 50,000 market rate units.
Wrap it up, please.
Find out who 40B really benefits. One only needs to wonder, why would developers lobby so hard to keep this law around? Remember one thing, don't look at it as a save-all for 40B. It will not do that. If you want the units, then that's your choice, and everybody should do it fair and square.
Gentleman to my left.
Me?
You, sir.
Bill Heaney, 7 Madison Street. I've heard several speakers here today say that this is the first bite of the apple. We need this to keep going with the process. And I just want to make sure that people understand what this motion in Article 2 is actually doing. And in Article 2, if we voted for it, we are authorizing the selectmen to lease real property for such number of years to a maximum of 99 upon terms and conditions that are acceptable to the Board of Selectmen. Ladies and gentlemen, this project does not come back to you anywhere, anytime, according to this motion. If you pass it, it's done. And you just need to know that before you actually vote. I urge you to support the amendment that's on the floor for indefinite postponement. Thank you.
There are a couple of selectmen that were standing. Madam Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, indefinite postponement means that 220 seniors in this community are going to be dead and buried before we ever have housing for them. I really appreciate the person who stood up and said that she has to move out of Wareham because there isn't any place for her in Wareham. The demographics are such that I think we need to be looking out just as much for the people of this community as we do for all of the other important things that this can do for us. If somebody could tell me what other project we could put anywhere in this town that would generate anywhere between $4.5 million and $7.5 million of tax revenue that won't come out of your pockets, please come forward with that information. You put us in these seats and you asked us to come up with ideas that solve the problems of our community. We have problems. One of them is that we don't have enough senior housing. We have 104 units that are operated by the Wareham Housing Authority. We have a few more units that are operated by an independent person. We have people who need housing. You asked us to solve the problems of the finance revenue, the property 2.5. Proposition 2.5 isn't going away. It's not going away, and we are faced with cutting and cutting and cutting. Where is the money going to come from to continue to provide the services that we all need? How are we going to educate our children? This is a really good business proposition, and it's a really good social proposition. I urge you all to please vote against the amendment for indefinite postponement. Thank you.
Lady to the right.
My name is Jeanette Santos. I live in Wareham. I want to know, how come the law states clearly over here that the deed was legally recorded and said what it was for, meant to be for? And the selectman can come and say no to a legal thing. Isn't it supposed to go to court or something? Huh? You can't just make rules and then break them yourselves. I can't understand it. I want to know how the hell this thing came on. You know, how come it's here at the town hall? It ain't fought legally. If it was meant to be for a school, municipal building, recreation, a playground, why are we coming here to vote on for housing? And how come we got a lot of housing, affordable housing? I see a lot of new people in town, old and young, and we ain't got enough for people who live in this town. That's what I want to know.
Madam Selectman.
I'm a senior citizen. I'm 75 years old.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to address the issue on the deed, back in 1977 when it was brought to this body, the body agreed to take the property for general municipal use. If you're upset with the Board of Selectmen doing something, you should be upset with that board, because that was the board after the body took it, after the body accepted it, that Board of Selectmen put its own restrictions on it. Those deed restrictions are not what this body voted. This body voted for general municipal use.
Gentleman to the right.
Thomas Bickey, District 3. Careful reading of the printed article, line 13 says, if the Board of Selectmen so vote to lease or convey, and I heard you say that there was no conveyance.
That's correct.
This document that I'm holding in my hand says or convey. So I'm asking you, does this mean only lease and should be convey stricken from the printed document? That's my first comment. You can wait till I'm finished and then you can respond. Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
and then line 18 says, if the Board of Selectmen is to lease, which would suggest to me that if they decide to convey the property, then there's no reason for them to lease the property. And then my third comment is for Selectman Donahue, who said that we're going to get all this money at no cost to us. It's my understanding that several of the proposals are looking for somewhere between $1 million or more from CPC money, which is actually money that the people in this town are going to pay to the developers of this property. Thank you very much. You can respond if you'd like.
Thank you.
To answer the question?
Hold on. There were two questions. I'll answer the first part. You can answer the second part. Just as a general primer for town meeting, ladies and gentlemen, articles are placed on the warrant well in advance of town meeting taking place. So more often than not, the articles are written in very broad scope to account for any of the exigencies that happen between the time that the article is prepared and posted and the time that we come to town meeting and make motions. That's why you will notice, for example, at the end of Article number 2.